Happy New Year. Okay, well, good. Is everybody all right? I mean, come on. Y'all been waiting on this for a while, hadn't we? Happy New Year. It's a great day to be a Razorback, I can tell you that. Hope I don't move and mess anything up here, but y'all bear with me here. But it is. It's a great 2018, and I'm extremely excited with the direction of our staff, finalizing, putting the final pieces. We still have some support staff that we're still working on and hiring, but the announcement of our staff is very much a process that we've gone through. It's been tiresome. When you select a staff, you look for quality people. That's first and foremost what I looked for. Upon taking the job here at Arkansas, you always have a list in your mind of guys that have a great reputation across the country. Guys maybe that you play against, you coach against, that you go clinic with. And so as you compile a list through your tenure in coaching, you always admire a complete body of work that people do. And that was a big part of selecting our entire staff. But first and foremost is the quality of people that we bring in. Again, I've said it before and I'll say it again. Football is what we do. It's not who we are. And if you recruit the right caliber of players, surround them with the right staff, you'll win. And that's what we're going to do. Timing and fit played another major role in the selection of our staff. The timing of where we are and the dynamics, the landscape of college football and the direction that it's going, and it's not going away. The changes of offenses and defenses and special teams are continuing to change daily and yearly, and you've got to stay on the cutting edge. That had a process, and that had a contingent upon the selection process and who we hired as a staff. And fit. Do they fit what I want to do? Do they fit the blueprint that we know what it takes to be successful? So all three of these come into play as you select a staff. And when you do finalize and you narrow down a group of men and women, we have women that work in our offices as well, you always look at, especially as you select a staff here, on-field coaches, is what kind of evaluators are they of talent? And then once you evaluate them and project them into what you want to be and what you want to do, can they recruit? So evaluating, recruiting, and then the retaining, the developing of young men also had a huge role in selection of our process and who we wanted to be a part of this great Razorback historic tradition and program that we want to build it to become a national contender. And so with that, as it fits a blueprint of our success, we hired extremely excited to hire John Chavis as our defensive coordinator, and really excited about his wife Diane being a part of this. Our coaches' wives are our home run hitters. They're so much a part of our young men's lives, and to have John and Diane is very much a blessing to the University of Arkansas and to our staff. Extremely excited about John. Offensively, of course, Joe Craddock was our offensive coordinator at SMU, and his wife Abby, to have them a part of us. Joe and I have gone back for 6 years plus, and I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about that in coming up, but extremely excited about having Joe and Abby. And as you start looking at the development of young men, there's far more than just being on the field. You have to look at student athletes off the field, in the weight room, in our strength and conditioning. What we do, how fast we go, is far more than just how much weight you can lift. It's about, can I get to point A to point B and how fast I can do it. And so the dynamics of our strength and conditioning program, the ability for our athletes to recover, and Trumaine Carroll and his wife Jarnay are joining us, and True has been with us as well, has a great pedigree, and working underneath Rob Glass, which is very well respected in this profession. And True has done a great job, as I mentioned in my statement, and big part of our success at SMU was the development of our young men and being able to flip a roster and to develop these young men um, uh, with their strength, their speed, and their ability to stay on the field with their health. So and I'm going to open up for questions, but just extremely excited defensively. What I was looking for was someone that was going to disrupt the quarterback, someone that was going to be aggressive and attacking, someone that was going to be multiple, that was be able to be in and out of fronts, and finally someone that was going to be able to take the secondary and tie it into the fronts, the pressures, the movements that has to happen up front. And to be able to have the back end tie in with the front end is so much a part of it. And to have John's experience is very valuable. And offensively, we want to run the football. You'll hear us talk about that over and over. We're a two-back, run-oriented, play-action, shot football team. That much like defense, I want to be aggressive. I don't want to sit back. I want to be aggressive, and I want to be very multiple. With the addition of the rest of our staff, and I'll just go through the names, but on the offensive side of the ball, Jeff Traylor will coach our running backs and will be associate head coach, coaching running backs. Justin Stepp will coach wide receivers. Barry Lunny will coach our tight ends. He will have some special teams responsibilities on the offensive side of the ball. Dustin Fry will coach our offensive line. On the defense side of the ball, we've talked about Coach Chavis. He'll coach our linebackers. Steve Caldwell, which has had a prior stint here at the University of Arkansas, is coming back. Will coach our defensive ends. Ron Cooper will coach in our secondary, coach our safeties. John Scott, which was retained from the previous staff, will coach our interior defensive line and work. He and Coach Caldwell work together. And on the back end, our 10th assistant that we'll be adding, it'll be effective to go out on the road at the end of the week, will be Mark Smith. Mark was a part of our staff at SMU, a longtime high school coach, was our recruiting operations coordinator, and served as also an analyst on both sides of the ball. He's got a great knowledge of the game. On our strength staff, Trumaine Carroll is our head strength and conditioning. Our associate strength and conditioning is Rhett Brooks, was with us at Clemson and followed us to SMU. Chad Kane and is coming over from Tulsa. Mark Soltis joining us from SMU, and Lance Yancey also from SMU. So with that's our addition to our staff, and we'll talk support staff at a later time. I'll open up for questions, and we'll go from there. Yes, sir.
Chad, you mentioned how relationships come about and how you hire someone. Can you talk about your background with Coach Chavis and how that developed during the course since you were hired?
Yeah, studying teams and studying defenses, and kind of what's next and what's on cutting edge over the course of our tenure, even back to high school, and just looking at guys that do really aggressive things defensively. John's name always came up from his time at Tennessee, and having a prior acquaintance with Coach Dan Brooks. Dan and I worked together at Clemson. And his relationship with Coach Chavis, having served on the staff with him at Tennessee. So I had a great in with the relationship there as far as getting in contact with John and obviously studying what he did, playing against John in the Chick-fil-A Bowl, and playing against LSU, and just knowing that, and the way we look at it is kind of like this: what really gives us problems offensively? And that's one thing that John and I have talked about numerous times through this whole process. I guess we started talking, when we first got the job here. I knew what I wanted. My list was short. And so when I started talking to John and went and actually visited with him, it was what really causes us problems from a defensive standpoint. And so that's how the relationship kind of started, and it goes back. But just playing against John and going against some of his predecessors and what he does, he's got a great reputation in this league, and that really was another attribute to him. Yes, sir.
When did things, develop with John in terms of when you knew he was going to be
Yeah, it really kind of started. He had a season left to finish, and he and I had talked, but just talked like we talked to a lot of people. It wasn't until during the Christmas holidays and really just kind of till we got back into the the final, I guess probably about the last 10, 12 days is when it really kind of started narrowing down, and I knew what I wanted to do defensively, and that was what I was after. And it was just kind of working out some details and just kind of getting through, just kind of getting to know each other. You don't just jump out there, and you want to kind of develop a relationship and talk and understand what his family's like, what's Diane like, what's his two sons like. Coach loves to hunt, and he loves to get outside, and he's just a ball coach. I mean, and that's what you want. And then you look at, well, okay, he fits the mold of being a great person. His reputation as a coach, when you start looking at, the guy's got 81 draft picks in NFL. That's part of the development of what we're after. Evaluating talent, recruiting them, getting them here, you got to develop them. That's part of the retaining, both on the field and in the classroom. And so when you start looking at that, that's kind of the way this whole thing, how it grew. And just talking about some of the, hey, you worked with so and so, and I've been with them and know them, and just kind of, I guess we'd talk. John would tell you a little bit more. We'd talk 15, 20 minutes through the course of the holidays, and we may talk about football. We may talk about deer hunting. We may just talk, just to kind of see, hey, is he going to fit what we're after?
If I read this right, you turned over play calling duties to Joe after the first year at SMU. How come you decided to do that? And how did you do that?
Yeah, you know what? Joe and I work really good together. When I was at Clemson, Joe was our GA, and brought him in. Great, sharp young mind, knew the game, had answers. Brought Joe to SMU and really worked hand in hand. And even through SMU, through Clemson. You work hand in hand. For say is you turn it all over to Joe and say it's all his. I think that'd be very unfair to Joe. It'd be very unfair, this whole process. But we work together in the play calling. He's taken over a lot more of the responsibility, but he and I work hand in hand together through the whole thing. And so he's on the headsets, he's calling the plays. But if I say, hey, Joe, hey, look, let's take a shot right here, or look, I want to run the football right here, and I want split flow zone. Hey, let's run the power. Let's get in 12 personnel. Then that's the way this whole communication works. During the process, of course, of the week of game planning, he and I are in there together. But I just felt like that I couldn't be quite the head coach that I needed to be, taking over and still being the 100% play caller when I was at SMU our first year. I felt like that there was some areas, especially on the defensive side of the ball, that were being deficient because my attention wasn't on that side of the ball. And so it was important for those kids to see that I'm a head coach and not be able to walk in a room and say, well, all he cares about is offense. And I am an offensive coordinator by heart and by trait. I'm the head football coach, and I've got to make head football coaching decisions. So that's where Joe and I felt like the longer Joe and I were together, the more responsibility I was to give him, and he'll be the first to tell you how we work together in that. I'm sorry? Go. Pretty well. I think we finished in the top 10 or top 12 in total offense, and we've kind of progressed each year. And but again, it's a lot of answers. Defensively, you got to have answers. Offensively, you have to have answers. And but he and I work together in that as well. So, yes, sir. Uh-huh. Run game coordinator. Mm-hmm. Yeah, great. You work together. You've got a great continuity. Again, Dustin is another guy that was with us, has a great playing career at Clemson, played in the league for a good while, very knowledgeable, can relate to his players extremely well. Another part of what we do, and being able to relate to our guys. And then just his knowledge in the run game and being able to come in and use our 2 tight end package, 3 tight end package, be able to shift, move, motions. He's got a great knowledge of what we want to do and the target points when you're running inside zone, outside zone, what we want to do. And so, the way we break down our game planning, and without just getting into a game plan talk here, I feel like I'd give a clinic, but, you break it down. Everybody has an area that they focus on. Justin Stepp will focus on the shots and formations, and Dustin Fry will focus on run game and short yardage. And then, we all come back in together on a Sunday night, Monday night, and start tying it all together. And at the end of the day, obviously the guy that's held accountable is our offensive coordinator, and it falls onto the head coach. And so then but you have to work together. I mean, Coach Chavis is probably the first one to tell you that he breaks it down much similar. People have different areas of responsibilities, and they come in. But Dustin has a great mind, and has really benefited us being able to run the football. I know you had a question here. Yeah. Well, it's the blueprint that we had taken, and how we built the staff from where we came from at Clemson. And we came in, and everything starts in recruiting. And I've said this before in my last press conference. If you can't be involved in recruiting or add some value and worth to this football program, to the University of Arkansas in recruiting, you will not last. It's just bottom line. And our ability to turn SMU around in the 2.5, 3 years that we did was strictly, you can say X's and O's all you want, but it's strictly about getting the right fit of players in there. And so the model of what I'm wanting that's going to get this program to where a national contender that we're going to be, it's got to start with recruiting, and it's got to end with recruiting. And so building that recruiting base, that recruiting department, as you can see, the staff sizes nowadays in college football, they're growing, and ours is too. Ours is going to grow and going to continue to grow. And so we got to continue to have the hub in there that's going to really be the spokes of that wheel moving forward in our recruiting department. Yes, sir.
You mentioned Barry Lundy having some special teams do. Can you maybe go over how you're going to handle special teams? Is there going to be a coordinator, so to speak, or what?
Tanner Burns. Tanner is an off-the-field coach. I retained Tanner, and he had a majority of some special teams duties a year ago, or the last several years. Tanner and I have talked in depth of what I'm wanting to do special teams and how I want to structure it. And so it'll come out of Tanner's office, and of course we'll have some help in there. But the voice on the offensive side, on-field coaching per se, will be Barry. Everybody has a special teams responsibility. Let me back that up. But the lead point to where it starts on the offense will be Barry. On the defense will be John Scott. And then from there, we'll later in details, once we get an idea of how it'll be, who's responsible for what. I can go into
specifically working with the kickers in the
Mhm.
Is that
Yeah.
on field?
Who on field will be working with that? Barry will be working a lot with those as well. He'll be coaching tight ends, and he'll also have some responsibilities with the kickers and the punters.
You've got a high influence of people that have been here,
Mhm.
Barry Lundy, John Scott, Steve Caldwell. How important was that, knowing the landscape that the University of Arkansas has with the unique fan base?
Yeah, I think again, when you look, let's back up. When you look at John and you look at Barry, and in this profession, the way this works, usually a staff comes in and you bring a whole new staff in, or you give guys opportunities to stay. And when I first met John, let's talk about John for just a second. When I first met John, he walked in the office, and we had the talk that, this is just, it's change is happening, and everybody, let me just say this, everybody was very understanding, very professional, and I got great respect for guys that have been on this staff that have given a lot of time and energy to the University of Arkansas. And so, but John came in, and John was very open, and just said, Coach, here's the deficiencies defensively, in his opinion. Here's some very quality people that off-field, that coach, you need to at least listen or look at them, was very open, and I thought that was unique. And so when that happened, he and I talked a little bit more, and I said, because I'd known John through other people and known his story, his career in NFL, and only been here a short period of time. And I shared with him, I said, John, when I do choose a defensive coordinator, if a position's still open, but I appreciate what you did. I would love to entertain to just talk with you and let our defensive coordinator. And so that was important. I think what it does, and Coach will probably share a little bit more of this, it really bridges we play a lot of young guys on both sides of the ball. And it really kind of helps when you assess and you break down the talent that's here, that's returning, and then trying to merge the new staff in. I think it helps kind of bridge some of the gaps a little quicker. I mean, we're going to get the relationships. That's just what we do. But I think it helps kind of pull it together a little quicker. And in the same way on the other side with Barry. I just think it just gives us a great insight, but also pulls us together. Do they fit? That's the biggest question I had before we hired them both. Do they fit what we want and who we are as people? And those boxes were checked really quick. Yes, sir.
Mark Smith going to stay as director.
He will be our director of on-field recruiting, and when you do that, you talk about managing boards and kind of the voice. When you have a new defensive staff, the offensive guys have been with us. They understand how we recruit, how the board runs and manages, because they've been with me for so long. Defensively, Mark's been with us. He's been the director of recruiting for us. I'm just going to make him the director of on-field recruiting. He'll have some special teams duties as well, but he'll be to help manage the defensive board and then tie it all in and how we communicate with recruits and just kind of the process that we go through. So yes, he'll stay in the recruiting part. He's got great relationships with that. That's one of his.
Input do you have on the defensive side of the ball, or is well going to be
Yeah. Again, part of being a head coach is managing and overseeing the color of shoestrings that you wear all the way to the helmet color, the jersey color, to everything. And I think, Joe can probably attest to this, and Trumaine can attest to it. There's not a stone in this program that's going to be turned over that I'm not going to know something about. And I'm heavily involved. I know what causes us problems defensively. And that's, as we said as a defensive staff, and we'll do it more in the spring than we do in the course of the season. We will in fall camp. But in the spring, there'll be a lot of times watching spring ball together from offense and defense and everybody in the same room and just communicating. Just having a great open line of communication. Part of that relationship for me to be able to go in and sit down with Coach Chavis and say, look, Coach, this is really good, but boy, if we could do this is really what gives us problems offensively. And but to come in and to say, hey, look, this is what I want to do. And step out, that's not who I am. I hired John Chavis. He's got 37 years of coaching experience. He's won almost 73% of his games. These are the parameters I'll give everybody by, but to tell him we're going to call this blitz on this down, no, I'm not. That's, I can tell him 3rd and 6, this is what causes us problems, and we'll go through it. But that's why he's the defensive coordinator.
We got time for a couple more.
Yes, sir.
What do you feel about the
The color of anthracite? Well, when you start looking at uniforms and you start looking at all kinds of things, again, it goes back to our filter and everything we do. It's about recruiting, So, I'm 49 years old, and unfortunately, 49-year-old people don't play at the University of Arkansas. It's about 18-year-olds. So maybe if I had an 18-year-old and what he thinks about anthracite, and if this guy can run a hole in the wind and they like anthracite and he can catch everything throws at him and tackle everything comes around, I like anthracite too. If he doesn't like anthracite, I don't like anthracite. Yes, sir.
Coach, how would you, after reviewing the roster and taking time to do that, how would you sort of assess where the program is and what you've got to kind of change?
Yeah, speed, and more speed. You either have it or you're chasing it. You don't want to chase speed too long. You won't last long. I'm really excited. We actually had a couple staff meetings over the last few days after Coach Craddock and Coach Chavis and them have been able to evaluate both sides of the ball in depth and to kind of come back in and circle in and just for an overview. I didn't ask for per detailed like we will when we get back off the road here in a few weeks, but I asked more of what they saw in general. And excited. We're very excited. We played a lot of young guys. We've had a lot of our players already back, and a lot of our players have swung through the office and met with the new staff. And I guess the major voice that we're hearing is hungry. They don't want to be home again during Christmas. Hadn't been quite the fun they thought it might be. It's not fun watching bowl games when you're not playing in it. So, you know, from the coordinator standpoint and overview of our team, there's a lot of excitement. There's some guys here that work with. Obviously, we got to change some things. The way we're going to do some things in the weight room, and Coach True will tell you a little bit more about that. That's going to probably be the biggest shock that's going to hit these guys between the eyes here in a few days. It's what's fixing to happen in that. But so yes, sir.
Do you have any guys that can run holes in the wind? How fast?
You know, I think we got a couple, but that's pretty fast, and so we got to we got to find some more of those guys. And you know, again, we're always recruiting speed. Got to have that. Yeah, fast, real fast. No, I mean it's you know, a straight line track guy is fast, but you put a pair of shoulder pads and a helmet on him, and maybe he's not as fast. We want football players that can get from here to that wall and make a tackle in space really quick. You know, like a hiccup. You know, get there in a hurry. So, last one.
Now that you've had some time to look over the roster, I know you said there's more to do, but you signed 8 players in the early period. Where are you at now, and how many more you'd like to bring in? What are the areas that you need to address?
I think we're going to wind up, and it's hard to say a number right now, but I think you're going to look at potentially 6 to 8 more signing. We've got to address the need, and I'm sure Coach and them will talk a little bit about it. We got to address the need in some offensive line. We've got to address the need in some of our secondary and DNs. And again, Coach will tell you about his philosophy, but that's an area right there. And again, you're always looking for great football players. So, you know, if there's a great football player out there, regardless of the position, we want those guys. So, all right. Thank you. I'm going to turn it over to Coach Chavis.